Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Soul Sessions. And this is the last of our series in how to succeed without losing your soul. And today's topic is how to use your mind to succeed.
That's right.
Rather than work.
I think we established that it's our mind that stops us, meaning it's the one that makes us fail. So it's also the one that helps us succeed.
And I think a lot of people, I know I did when I first started trying to succeed. We all do. We want to look for that external, like light at the end of the tunnel, that approval, that acknowledgement, that confirmation from something external that things are working. And I hear this question a lot of, why do I keep getting the same results? Why am I stuck? We all have had those moments in our life. So if you're stuck, this is perfect for you. And it really comes down to you taking responsibility for the results, and internal creates the external, not the other way around. And I think that's really what we're going to cover today. Where does success really come from?
It is one of the hardest lessons because our senses are designed to perceive things in the opposite direction, that we think we're reacting to external circumstances, right? So we think the external circumstances have more power than me. I'm simply reacting and doing my best given the situation. But that's not reality. What is happening is the external simply reflects our internal mind, our internal state of mind.
So if you say, I'm just going to put it out there and see if it sticks or see if this is viable, and you don't have an intention or passion around it, you most likely will get a mixed result because you're putting that ambiguity out there. You're going to get ambiguity back.
Yes, you put blur out, you get
blur back. So we want to really, first of all, we're going to go through the three elements. But when you say, when people fail, when they want something and they're feeling stuck or they're not getting results, and they ask us, what do I do? I failed. I keep failing. I don't know what to do. And we talked about in the episode of the Wright brothers, tried 400 times to fly that darn plane, finally did it. And if you look at all the greatest inventions in the world, there's always been a great hurdle for that person to overcome to get where they are at.
Yeah. Well, the first step is always to accept that it is your mind, because again, the tendency is so powerful to blame the external, to say, I would be successful if I was in a different city, if I had a different partner, if I had a different bank account, et cetera, et cetera.
Or if the economy was better.
Yeah. Any of those things, they're factors. We want to look at them and consider them, but they are not the cause of success and failure. The cause is the mind. Did
you know that there were more millionaires created during the Great Depression than any other time in history? I don't know if the Great Recession that happened in 2008 was also a part of inspiring people to become entrepreneurs. That I think that we all think that the economy has to be doing great for everyone to do well. And I think when the economy is good, it just means that everyone has their job and they're feeling comfortable. It's that discomfort when things aren't working out there and you have to turn inward. I always feel that when you've exhausted all options and you're just like kind of feeling it on your knees, and that feeling of failure, like, I don't know if I can make it, it forces you to look inward. It forces you to say, what's going on here? Where do I go from here? And I think sometimes we need to get to that point to really start turning inward.
Yeah. So it is a mental discipline that we're talking about. You have to be able to discipline your mind, very much like any chariot or car or vehicle. You have to learn how to drive it so it goes in the direction that you want it to go, instead of the way
letting the auto, well, you know, the electric car, the self-driving cars haven't been doing very well. So yeah, so that idea that we have to basically take control of our own mind,
take the reins,
and drive where we want to go. And so many times people even forget to set intentions. It's such a simple thing. I mean, you can't just set intentions and I intended and then it doesn't work out and then it was not meant to be. But you have to powerfully set intentions in a deeper way. We're going to talk about that. So let's start with what happens when someone fails. What would they do in that moment? What would you tell someone? What would you do in that moment?
Yeah, so the first principle is this, that you have to see it as an opportunity, which of course is the hardest thing because failure feels bad in our body, in our mind body. It feels like disappointment, failure, regret,
shame,
doing it wrong. What are other people going to think about me, et cetera, et cetera. All those things are part of the pattern of that mindset that has created the results. And so if you buy into those thoughts, you will simply repeat the pattern. You will recreate that again. Even if you go to another city, get another career, get another job, change everything externally, because that mindset is still there, it will create the same results.
So if they're getting the same results, what do they do? And for me, I always suggest that pay attention to how you respond to failure. Like you said, see it as an opportunity. And I guarantee you're not seeing it as opportunity. You want to bulldoze past it. You want to skip over it. You want to like almost figure out what it is so you don't fail anymore versus, wow, this is something I should learn from. And if you change how you respond to failure, everything starts to change. But if you respond the same way, you're going to keep getting the same results. So I would say, quite simply, change the way you respond to failure. Like you said, let's look at this as an opportunity. Step one.
That's right.
And then so you fail and you're like, okay, here's an opportunity. But say you've tried, like the Wright brothers, you've tried 400 times this way, upside down, all these different things. You keep feeling like nothing's working. And whether you're looking for love or trying to get along with your partner or trying to get a promotion or starting your own business, there's that feeling of you feel defeated and it must not be meant for me. This might not be in my plan, or I'm not talented enough, fill in the blank enough to have this thing. And so we start to really get down on ourselves and we feel this kind of tamas energy, as they say in the Upanishads, this kind of slowing down, defeatist kind of way. And so how do we get back into motivation? How do we shift that when we're in that place? Besides looking at it as an opportunity, but what do we do to turn it around?
Well, the seeing it as an opportunity is the first step, because what it does, it clears the mind of that false assumption of buying into the thought or trying to push it away, trying to avoid it, trying to distract ourselves with something else. We simply stay with it and we say, if this is an opportunity, what can I learn from it? And in staying with it and in examining it, it's going to teach us precisely the lesson that we need in order to move forward.
I find that it reveals what really is that we fear, that we think getting that result will make us avoid. So whatever we're trying, if we're doing it from ego, we're usually doing it to avoid something and to move from one place to another, a self-identity from one identity, maybe a failure to a success, or to fit in, or whatever it is that we're attached to. And that by in the failure, it reveals that undercurrent, that what is really underneath my desire. And like you said, it gives you a chance to purify your mind from that ego desire. And you start to ask yourself, well, why do I want this? Like almost having more clarity of why you want it.
Yes. And here a lot of people ask, how do I know if it's what I'm meant to be doing, or should I do something else, right? If I fail at something, should I try something else? So the answer is simple. it's not what you do, it's the mindset again. If the mindset is of one of possibility and success and learning and being open to whatever shows up, it does not matter what you choose, whether you choose to stay or to go. Either choice will lead to success. On the contrary, if your mindset is one of defeat, of I did something wrong, there's no possibility here, I'm going to fail, then that also becomes your destiny. Whether you stay or you go, you will create the same pattern or defeat again.
And wouldn't you agree that, I'm making you agree with me, I don't know, maybe you could disagree, that it's much more than mindset? I mean, mindset's the accessible part, but it's really about becoming a person who thinks like that. You know, becoming the person who sees opportunities naturally, who believes naturally. It's not just you're covering up your old ego and saying, I'm going to be positive, like polishing up the ego to be a positive person. But it's really about where do I need to grow in myself? Who do I need to evolve to be? Like I used to, when I was younger and first starting out, there were women that were really powerful and they had strong boundaries, and I was such a pleaser, and I would be like, that woman has such a presence about her. What it would take for me to become like her, like I need to evolve in order to have more success or the things I want, not to be like her, but to have those qualities that actually, not a personality trait, but more like beingness, and a presence that actually is able to hold the success that you want. Because if you're insecure and you're feeling small, it's like, why would you get more responsibility or things that you can't handle that are only going to challenge you more? It's like, where do I need to grow to become the person who has the things that I want?
Yeah.
And I don't know how you would say that, but that's beyond just mindset, is like becoming that, where that's natural.
Well, it goes back to what is the nature of the mind. So think of it as a stage, and whatever arises, whatever shows up on that stage. So what you're describing there is that there was this situation with a failure or a job, right? And then you saw that this person arose in your awareness that had certain qualities. So that's your mind as well. Everything is occurring within that sphere of the mind.
So it's what we would say the shadow of the part that we haven't integrated yet.
It's showing you something you need to learn.
So it's not acquiring that knowledge, but becoming able to express. So who do I need to become to express that confidence, to express that certainty, to stand up for myself more, to keep boundaries? It's not about basically changing behavior, but becoming someone that's natural, right?
Yes.
It feels like this is who I am. I'm not doing it to manipulate you. I'm doing this because this is who I am.
Right. So as you perceive these things that arise in your consciousness, you start to see them as part of you. In other words, they are arising because they are you. They wouldn't be, you would not be able to perceive them and to think about them if they were not part of you. So everything you think, everything you feel, everything you dream is your own consciousness, your own awareness. And a lot of the work is simply remembering that, oh, this is also part of me. Because the tendency is to think, well, that person has these qualities, but they're special. They're unique.
I can never be confident like that woman or strong like that person. I've been weak my whole life. And that we get defined by our patterns. So we think we are our patterns. And so what you're saying is that you see yourself beyond the patterns of who you thought you were and becoming who you're becoming.
That's it. And
like you're a verb, not an object, not a subject.
Yes. Right? So as we're doing that, then that higher knowledge that says you can create your reality with your thoughts becomes the truth, basically, because that's what's happening. As you understand the higher principles, your thoughts create your reality. Your thoughts will literally create who you become, what you experience in life, success, etc., because that is the principle.
So, in other words, if you think positive, and I used to write checks, to myself and vision boards, but if you don't change who you are, it's almost like a conflict, because you really don't believe it because you haven't had it before. So you're thinking, I'm me that has more stuff. But what we're really doing is saying, who is my real self? And what is my real self? My real self creates these things. So it's really a shifting of who you think you are.
That's pretty
versus
much it.
Just thinking positive or acting with power or courage.
Yes, because most people believe they are their persona, meaning the personality they've developed from past experiences. And it's based on conditioning. Your past conditions you to think of yourself in a certain way and to think of what's possible for yourself in a certain way. So that conditioning, there's nothing wrong with it. It will help you survive. But that's not reality. It's simply a function of the mind, the ego function, the persona function. As you start to realize, what is the nature of consciousness? Oh, everything I think, I perceive, I can imagine is a type of reality, a potential reality. Then you're understanding things in the correct way. Then those things, you can start to direct the mind in the direction that you want to see your life evolving and unfolding.
I remember, this is an interesting story. When we were driving from New York to California, it was when we first started working together in 2013. We started in 2012. It's our 10-year anniversary. 2013, we rode cross country, and we stayed overnight at a hotel like a Midway. And I had a dream that night. And I'm not a singer, Rob can attest, but I was on this huge stage and I was singing the song, The Impossible Dream, to dream the impossible dream. And I sang it with perfect pitch and people were applauding. And I woke up that day and I just felt this high. And it was that the dreams show us like who we're becoming. And I love that song, The Impossible Dream. If you read to fight the unbeatable foe, I don't even know. It's from a play. I don't even remember what play it's from, but it's just this wonderful, empowering, like it was almost like a message from my inner self saying, this is who you're becoming. And so much has changed in the past 10 years since we started working together. So that's a way where we could not only externally see people that are inspiring, but we can actually have experiences of our true nature in our dreams.
Very much so, and it's a big part of it to connect with that wisdom from within, because there is an intelligence within us that is much more vast than our conscious awareness. Our conscious mind is the tip of the iceberg. Most of the psyche is unconscious.
It's I always hear it often in the Vedanta books. They talk about it. The cork bobbing on the top of the ocean is our ego, and the waves are our soul and the currents of life, and then the unconscious is everything underneath. And so you think about this little cork that's what we mostly focus on, and there's so much potential within us. So what would be a way for people to start visualizing their goal? What would be the best way for them to get started and access their impossible dream?
That's right. Yes, so now we understand that the mind is able to create reality for us. So how do we use it? How do we wield that power? Well, first of all, you have to use your imagination. Jung called it the active imagination, meaning the ability to tap into that inner wisdom that's there. First principle, you have to be clear on what you want to create.
So and again, no blur, no ambiguity.
Yeah, it sounds easy, but most of us, when we're asked, well, what is it that you want to create? We think we have an idea, but when it comes down to it, we're not sure.
Well, we're not sure what we can ask for. I think we've been taught as kids, you're asking for too much. You know, who do you think you are? And we're denied a lot, so we begin to think that's all we can get.
Yes.
So we're afraid to ask for big things.
So the first principle of using your mind to create your reality is clarity.
Clarity.
You have to practice clarity. And it can take many forms. What I do is I have these sketchbooks that I sketch ideas out, and then the ones that really jump out at me and I say, wow, this is an interesting idea.
And he puts it on the whiteboard in our house.
I start to flesh it out, to cultivate it, to really give it form, meaning, structure. What is it that I'm thinking about in this idea? So the more clear you can be, that clarity of what is the vision about, the better.
And so you don't just do it once.
Yes.
And say, okay, I got my vision, and let's see what happens. You have to do it every day. And it's not about reminding yourself of it because you know, like if you really care about something, you don't have to keep reminding yourself. But it's more about getting in the habit of engaging the feeling of what you want to create and feeling it happen and almost like rehearsing it in your mind of your receiving it.
Yes, that's the second principle, consistency, because people often forget what they intended. They'll intend it on a weekend or a workshop or with a coach or a psychologist, and then they forget about it. They say, well, I already intended it, should come about anytime soon. But that's not how it works, because the reality will become who you are, like you said earlier, not just the thought, but who are you being? What are you expressing as your true self? That becomes your reality. So the consistency has to be there. You're clear on your vision, and then you consistently imagine it, visualize it.
Also, don't you think being consistent action toward it as well, because you're really demonstrating that like you're willing to do something to match, like you're kind of putting the pedal to the metal, basically. You're laying it out for yourself. You have to take some kind of risk and consistently keep moving toward your vision. You can't just visualize it and wait for the check to arrive in the mail or things to magically manifest.
That's the third principle, which is intensity, which really translates as passion. Meaning you're willing to do what it takes to receive that vision.
Is it like aligning with your purpose too? Like intensity, not in fear, but intensity in this is something I need to do?
That's right. It's a passion for that project. It's a work of love. You know this is something worthwhile, and that you're willing to invest your time, effort, energy, life for it. So if you're clear on your vision, you practice consistently, visualizing it, moving towards it, imagining it, then you have that intensity for it, that one-pointed mind, that everything is moving in that direction. Everything you're doing is moving you in that direction.
So it's sort of like that, again, not being unstoppable, is that intensity keeps that motivation. So even after, when we say, what can I motivate? How do I motivate myself after a setback? The setback is small compared to the intensity of your desire. And we don't want to make it a fear, or like we're going to be better when we get when we get our dream, or that we're going to run, like we're running away from something, or avoiding something by getting it. The intensity is more of a soulful intensity, a passion. That's a little different than that. But the consistency is really important, because I think a lot of people, when they start off really well, they have great intentions, they're clear, and then they get a couple failures, and then they start backpedaling and saying, well, maybe this isn't right, and let me try something else. And they're inconsistent, and they're having this lack of passion around it. It starts to we all get worn down when we fail, and it's like they allow that external failure to beat them up and drag them down, and then you lose clarity, you get confused, you're not being consistent anymore, and you lose the intensity.
That's right. So there you see the importance of being around people that have that same mindset. The more you can be around people that have abundance, creativity, possibility, that open mindset, the better. You also want to read higher knowledge continuously.
Study not just how to make Facebook ads or how to, get the most followers on Instagram. You want to study the mind, study yourself, and have a coach. I think I would have never been, both of us wouldn't have been where we are without coaches in our life. And
that's right.
You can't do this alone. And doing it alone is really almost in a way sabotaging yourself.
That's right. And if you understand the importance of it, you see how investing in a coach and in a teacher and a mentor is such a simple thing. You're simply doing very kind of the least that you can do, and it's going to give you great returns because it's going to keep you on that consistent path of your vision.
And having a not just one or two sessions, have a commitment to working with a coach consistently. That coach gives you clarity. It helps you maintain that intensity. And then also being in a group, too, of people that are on the same path. I don't recommend having peers like there's a lot of people that get support from their peers. I think it's great to have a community, but they're not at the level you want to be at. So if you're getting information from your peers, there's only so much they can take you. You need someone who's just a little farther ahead or has more of what you want or has mastered this consistency, this clarity. So because if it's two people who are in doubt, you're actually going to basically support each other in quitting versus supporting each other and keep going.
Yeah.
If you're not of that same mindset.
Absolutely. And if you look at anybody that's created something new in the world, invented anything new, anything useful, has contributed to society, to humankind, they've had mentors, they've had coaches, they've had people who supported them, people who helped them, because that's what it takes. And if you know what you're meant to be doing, it's worth doing everything in your power to make it happen. When I spoke at the Inc. Women's Entrepreneurial Forum back in a couple of years ago, before COVID, 2017, 2018. All these women were on the stage and they were all talking about has been the biggest impact in your success. And these women, I wasn't one of them, billionaires yet, but these women were billionaires like Sarah Blakely, who invented Spanx, and all these other really powerful, successful women. And they said, what was the number one thing that helped you achieve their success? And they said, I wouldn't be sitting here right now if I didn't have a coach. And Sarah says she had 2 coaches. So these people, they don't just create success out of a vacuum. They invest in themselves, and it's so important. Now, the thing is, if it's not that important to you, you're not going to want to invest in it, or you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to invest. So having someone who's going to help you stay committed is you're willing to lay it on the line. I think it's that little skin in the game you get by investing in your business or investing in your dream. How much time are you putting into it? Are you consistently visualizing it, seeing it, feeling it, and having that intensity? It's like that oil pouring with a stream. It has to be steady. It can't be like stop and start, or you're going to get that in the external world. It'll feel like, okay, I'm doing well, but then it's not consistent. It's because your mind's not consistent. Yeah, and this is supported by current neuroscience. The more we learn about the mind and the brain, the more the wisdom traditions make sense. It all aligns that, yes, the mind is the most powerful thing that is given to us as human beings, but we have to learn how to use it.
Yeah, it's the most important tool. Any person who want to reach their dream, the most important tool in your toolbox, an asset you have, is your mind.
Yes, and
you can have the most beautiful paints and the canvases and the high-end brushes, but if your mind isn't yours, you can't create a masterpiece.
That's well said.
So anyway, this was a great wrap up for our series. We'll be back. We're taking a break next week. We are on a trip. We're going to be going overseas for the first time in 2 years, finally, long overdue. And so we'll be doing some posting on our social media, saying hello from some really cool areas in Italy. And we'll be back fresh in June for a new series, and want you to know that what is you think your ego thinks is impossible, that means in your shadow the possibility is there. So dream big, find that purpose, find what lights you up, and it'll always feel fulfilling in life, and you'll never feel like a failure.
Thanks for watching.
Yes.
We'll see you next time.
Take care.
Stay
Bye-bye.
well.